All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? This is just a little bit of a fun one. The good folks over at comicbook.com put up an article yesterday or today that I kind of like. We're just basically talking about the 5 actors who were almost Captain America. Remember, not everybody at first. It's hard to imagine anybody other than Chris Evans playing Captain America at this point. But remember, there were a number of people that didn't like the idea because he had already been Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. And thought, he's already had his crack at it. And everybody will deny it now. But at the time, there were some very vocal people saying they didn't like the idea. Well, now it's impossible to think of it without him. But there were other actors who were at certain stages came either very close to being Captain America instead of Chris Evans, or at least were kind of in the running at some point. And I thought it would be fun to go through this article that comicbook.com and then, have us kind of pick who we think, if any of them would have turned out to have been Captain America, who would have been the best one. All right. This is who they start off
one already lined up.
Oh, yeah, I know you do. Let's start with this. John Krasinski was actually quite seriously in the running to be Captain America. Mm-hmm.
Did we lose your connection?
They did make
John?
him Jack Ryan.
Yeah, and he's great as Jack Ryan.
He is great as Jack
Ryan. He's done
Ryan.
a wonderful job. Well, John Krasinski was up for this role, and he's also talked about in interviews of putting on the suit and then seeing the Chris's and being like, oh, no. Why am I here?
Yeah, I mean, totally. But he was, look, I thought he looked good as Reed Richards.
Absolutely.
I will say this. I thought in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, his Reed Richards was a little flat. I mean, he wasn't given a lot to play, so it's unfair to say that. Mm-hmm. But he didn't exude the Reed Richardsness that I expected of him. But I do like him as Jack Ryan. So he could have been, I think, look, actors are actors. They rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm. There's just a wholesomeness and an earnestness that John Krasinski, that literally in voiceover, a lot of times people will call your everyman Reed your Krasinski.
Right.
And so he would have brought this very relatable guy to the mix and everything. So
whenever in the office, whenever he turned and looked into the camera.
When he halperded, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on. He
loved it.
He felt like a Captain America-esque figure.
Exactly.
Could do that.
So the next up here, we got Garrett Hedlund was mentioned in this article. Obviously from Tron Legacy. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about that? Garrett Hedlund. I mean, he seems physically, or not physically, but his facial expression seemed the closest to Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Could you have seen? I mean, he would have been much younger than
a lot younger of a Cap, which kind of does play into that World War II recruitment, though.
Right.
He's a kid who's just been trying to get in there and do what he can to help his country. I like that aspect of it. And Garrett Hedlund is also, I think he's very underrated and has not gotten great vehicles behind him. I'm a Tron apologist. I had fun. I liked it. It was a good time.
I like Tron Legacy too. Yeah. The problems that I had with the movie were the fact that we now live in an internet world and they went the wrong direction. They said, they live in this closed off the grid. And I would have been like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
The promise of Tron, it happened. The world became that. And they decided, because they couldn't figure out how to address that issue, they had to keep it more contained. But
the digital de-aging is what I had the biggest problem.
That was it was early days.
Yeah.
Early days, but they should go back and redo that for physical media the same way they went back and redid Ian Holm for Alien Romulus. Come on, Disney. Now that you have Tron, maybe with Tron Ares coming out, they'll go back and re-digitize Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy.
But I think he would have done a nice job. He's done a lot of really great dramatic turns too, this actor.
Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, PrizePicks. All right, guys, the biggest football game of the year is almost here. And if you're like me, you're looking for a way to make it even more exciting. And that's why I use PrizePicks, the best place to get daily fantasy action. With over 10 million members, it's the easiest and most fun way to play. Here's how it works. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and then boom, you're in. You think Patrick Mahomes will go for more than 250 passing yards? What about Travis Kelce rushing for more than 1.5 touchdowns? Pick your lineup in under 60 seconds and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Ann and I have both been playing PrizePicks all season. Let me tell you, it has been a lot of fun. This week, I'm rolling with Saquon Barkley rushing for more than 100 yards and at least 1 touchdown. The best part, even if one of my picks isn't perfect, PrizePicks Flex Play still lets me win. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So download the app today and use the code Campea to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game.
All right. Well, next up the list brings up everybody's favorite Shazam, Zachary Levi. What do you guys think about that? Because at the time he would have been coming off of like Chuck. I don't know if perceptions would have been. Boy, I don't know. I think he's got the physicality there.
Yeah,
but
he does.
I don't know
Yeah.
if perceptions would have been him as Captain America at the time.
At the time, for
Yeah.
sure, no. Post Chuck, no.
Would you guys, with 2020 with 2020 hindsight, would you have liked to have seen that?
Personally, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's hard to say. It's hard to say. I mean, like you said, but an actor, you never know. He had the physicality. He could look the part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought he looked great as Shazam's
He was
Captain.
wonderful as Shazam.
You know,
But
I
he can
just
play that affable nitwit kind of like
That's the pro-
juvenile thing.
that's what he does
yeah,
best.
and it feels earned. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
completely put on.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. The article then brings up Channing Tatum. So this would have been, I guess, post X-Men, right? No, I guess he never had his role because that was what's his name that played Gambit.
Oh yeah, Taylor.
Yeah, he
Kitsch?
never got
Yeah,
his.
so this would
he
have
never
been
got
before
his
he was
thing, so-
considered. Yeah.
Boy, I don't know because I just feel like the perception of his acting style back then was not lead actor material.
I could see you bringing him in the mix for this though,
Yeah.
especially with all of the like, there's only one God, ma'am, those kinds of things.
Magic Mike could
Yeah.
be Captain America.
But yeah, I think it's more the Magic Mike aspect of it, not
Yeah.
necessarily the acting. I think it's just the
Plus, I mean,
vehicles.
with his dancer, he has a dancer background.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the way he could move.
Physically,
Yeah, the
physically he'd
physicality.
be great.
I just don't know if he would have been the one to carry a Captain America
Sure.
at the time. Now he absolutely could, I think.
But also with that same kind of logic though, the guy from another teen movie,
right.
right? Like that's what we ended up with.
Yeah.
It's true.
We
Like,
did see him in superhero like
We
you know,
saw him
in
as
that-
Johnny and we saw him in some other things.
I personally
sure,
did not
but-
I personally did not like his character. I hated his version of Johnny Storm, not
Yeah.
his fault, but
Yeah.
I just didn't like where they went with it. It was
Same.
terrible writing. Obviously we don't have to talk about how bad those movies were, but
Mhm.
but actually when I was not one of those when Evans was talking about it in interviews about leading up to it,
Mhm.
I wasn't anti because he was making comments like if I'm going to do this, I need to commit to this and it needs to become a big portion of like who I am right now.
Mhm.
And do I want to take on that weight? So he wasn't jumping into it lightly.
No.
And so I appreciated that. So I kind of like the negative talk. I was kind of like, whatever. you know.
Sure.
Fantastic Four boy. you
My
know.
my mom is obsessed with him. He's a good Boston boy, you know? And so she was just on board from day one. He can do no wrong to Marie Carr.
Well, it's interesting. We talk about all these guys could have done it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they could have done it as well.
Well,
as Chris- there was,
sure.
and it's funny because we would have been saying, if the question is who could play Captain America because it hadn't been cast yet,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
if Chris Evans was brought up, I think we'd all say no
Yeah.
Well, I
because
think
he already played Johnny Storm.
I think the article though brings up one final one. I think that really puts your argument to rest when they bring up Dane Cook, who I think everybody here could have agreed that Dane Cook would have made a perfect Captain America.
Oh.
Yeah, not really,
Woof.
but I'm so glad they didn't go that
Man.
route.
No. When the article does do a great job of saying, hey, Marvel's really done some great stuff with comedic actors
Right.
and bring them into the mix. I'm always like, I feel that comedic actors can really land drama so well because they understand timing, and comedy is just tragedy that the rest of us get to laugh at. But in this particular instance, I feel like that would have been such bad casting.
Well, you know, it speaks to the whole casting, the way casting is done, and I think you can never undersell how important casting actually is. When you put all these guys together, and let's say did they all read, Jonathan? Does the article say they all read?
For the part,
Yeah, I
that
mean-
I'm not sure. I think it was various like stages of of discussion.
Well,
so.
one of the
Garrett for sure
reasons
did because he was in the final 3. It was
one,
him and
one
Mike
of the
Vogel.
reasons that I'm so excited about James Gunn's Superman is they spent a long time doing what are called chemistry reads, where they were putting actors up against each other to act opposite one another to see who's got the chemistry they need. And in the case of James Gunn's Superman, it's something that a lot of people don't talk about. They spent months doing this. So I'm expecting a lot from those performances,
Yeah.
but Marvel kind of did the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they cast a wide net. They probably brought in these people, and there's an ineffable quality that you can't really see until you actually have a person read the role.
Actually, all of these people read.
Okay, they all read.
So all of them read.
So that's really important because they bring in, and you can only then can you really judge and see. Look, there's nothing better than to watch an actor come in and take what was on the page and bring it to life in the ways that you weren't expecting. And I can speak to that because I am actually sitting in a room right now with an actor who came in and took a role on paper that looked pretty good. But she took it and made it much better than I ever thought it was going to be. And that is our own Chris Carr.
Phew, I was
Thanks,
sweating. I was
bud.
like,
In
oh,
our
it doesn't mean me because I have
own-
no recollection of this.
In our own audio drama,
Bud.
True Noir, The
Aw.
Assassination of Anton Cermak, where she plays Marianne Beam. But that was, and I didn't get to cast her. I just heard her before, so I already knew she could do it. But with Captain America, how's that for a plug? For
That was great.
For Captain America, though, it's really difficult to be earnest and also believable in that role. Like you had to believe him as little scrawny little Steve Rogers,
Yeah,
and
you
then
do.
he turns into a super soldier.
Yeah.
And the only way you can do that is if you see the casting, if you're in that room
Yeah.
and can see.
Well, and that just speaks to the just real genius of Sarah Hallie Finn, who has been the casting director for our Marvel
Unbelievable.
properties.
That's
She
Marvel's
is-
secret weapon.
Oh, she is so good. The reason why you all typically enjoy who they've cast is because she's just a casting wizard, and she has been able to pair people up beautifully or take risks, and she just does such a phenomenal job.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a misstep yet.
No, not at all.
Of these names that we've thrown out, we've got, I'll bring it up on the screen, sort of. Here we go. We got John Krasinski, Garrett Hedlund, Zachary Levi, Channing Tatum, Dane Cook. Okay. Of those, who would your second, like, if you weren't going to have Chris Evans, if we never knew about Chris Evans, but you knew about these, who would you have picked?
I feel like Krasinski or Garrett Hedlund. Also not on this list, which I think is weird, is Mike Vogel, who was in the final 3.
Right.
Who's in Cloverfield. And that honestly is who I probably would have gone with
Okay.
because of, at the time too, this, hey, we're going to work with maybe not as many known name actors.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like Hemsworth was not a known person. Hiddleston was not known really. And I think he would have been an interesting pick.
I agree. I think I would have gone probably with, like you said, Hedlund and Krasinski.
Yeah. How about you,
Although I
Jonathan?
do think that Channing Tatum could have pulled it off too.
Yeah. He's gotten so
I
much
just
better.
don't know if at the time, because we're going back now. but
Yeah.
my choice would have actually been Krasinski.
Not Dane Cook?
Well, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.